Welcome to Spirit Outspoken, the podcast for Christians who are ready to explore the deeper side of faith.
We believe God's truth is bigger than what we've been taught, and that real spirituality isn't something to fear, it's something to discover.
Each week, we open the space to explore miracles, energy, healing, consciousness, and divine science, all through the lens of a God who loves us and a faith that's still unfolding.
Whether you're deconstructing, rebuilding, or just feeling spiritually stuck, this is your place to reconnect with wonder, deepen your walk, and let the Spirit speak. Hello and welcome to another episode of Spirit Outspoken. Jason and I are just thrilled to be back here today. We are going to be talking about, this is a big word now, extra-canonical texts. And
I'm glad that you said that. Well, I should have a podcast if I struggle with words.
I had to practice that one a number of times. I was like, extra-canonical. So anyway, but I finally got it. Extra-canonical texts. So these are the ones, these new books that have been found or discovered and that were not included in the Bible. Yeah. And we're going to talk about why it's beneficial and why it's okay to want to explore and read and learn about these, that they have a valid place, that just because they aren't in the original book, it doesn't necessarily mean that we should just throw them out and not acknowledge them.
Yeah, absolutely. Historically, they were deemed heretical.
Yeah.
Right? You were either killed or silenced or exiled if you were a teacher or a believer in a lot of these. And those things tend to get ingrained, right?
Yes.
Into our culture, into our understanding of what's right and what's wrong. And through our own exploration of our own faith and researching some of this, and it all started with Mary, but a lot of these Gnostic texts provide such a beautiful perspective.
Yeah.
Understanding all of these different things that maybe we've never really looked at before. So not only do we want to say our personal stance is it's not wrong, but it's really helped expand our understanding of Jesus.
Yeah. And we're going to get into one biblical scholar. Well, there's multiple who have made a case for why these are important and worthy and valuable.
Yes.
And the reasoning for that. So,
which is important.
Yeah.
Which is important. Like, why should we look at this?
Yeah.
Beyond just Jason and Rachel saying it's interesting, right? So let's start with just like understanding what Gnostic means. Okay. Yeah. So we've touched on this word a little bit, but in general, right, some of Jesus's most powerful teachings weren't necessarily meant to be around hierarchy or guilt or shame or fear, but more around inner knowing, divine connection, and spiritual freedom. And this is where we really see gnosis come into play. So the word Gnostic is a Greek word, and it actually means knowledge.
Yes.
Right? But ordinary knowledge like facts or rules don't apply. This is inner knowledge, experiential knowledge, spiritual knowing, a direct connection to God through personal revelation. And it's not a religion. It's not. It's more like a movement of thought.
Yeah. So the scholar who I'm going to be talking about, Hal Taussig, he goes on to say that the product of Gnosticism is really a product of the last 100 to 150 years. And scholars actually invented the word so that there would be a separate category for books that were deemed as not as good. And it was almost like a code word that scholars would use or adopted to apply to some of these other things. And he says, technically, it's just a made up word, that it actually first came into being when there was someone in the 17th century who was trying to make a case against the Catholic Church. This was during the Catholic Protestant battle.
Oh, interesting.
And they were trying to say Catholicism is wrong, Protestantism is right. And that's where we first see that term used in a negative way. But Gnosticism was never a religion. And that is a huge misconception.
Yes.
And misleading thing. So when we talk about these books, people have been led to believe that this is a different religion. It is not.
Yes, it's early Christianity.
It's earliest Christianity. Yeah. And it's just more about the inner knowing, inner wisdom, like you've said, almost like this God within us, self-knowledge.
Yes. Okay. All right. Interesting. So let's talk a little bit about what these texts have in common. So there is an emphasis on the direct experience with the divine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the belief that there is a divine spark or a spirit that's trapped in the human body that longs to be reconnected with its source.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Teaches us that the material world is flawed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or it's fallen. And in some of the books, it's even saying that like it's created by a lesser God.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to get controversial. Okay. Don't poo-poo the messenger. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
And there's some interesting stuff around that, though. But what's so cool is that it includes a lot of the divine feminine. And some of them even see Jesus not as a blood sacrifice for our sins, per se, but as a spiritual teacher who awakens us to who we really are.
Yeah.
That has my brain in a pretzel.
Yeah,
okay.
I know. It has been interesting to try to get my mind wrapped around some of these things. It's interesting.
Yeah. And the reason why Spirit Outspoken is really interested in this is not because it questions Christianity at its core, right? I just think it's interesting, though, because by us discussing this, it's reclaiming what was really stolen or buried, literally, from Christians all along, right? It provides just another beautiful layer of understanding that people like you and I really connect to, especially women connect to, right? So yeah, pretty interesting stuff. So when did these books, like let's talk about the history. When did these books become heretical? You know, Christ was resurrected. There is this church father, Irenaeus, labels Gnostics heretics. And he says there can only be 4 true gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Okay.
So basically,
you're not in the core 4.
Yeah. If you're not part of the 4-man band, you're a heretic. So why was this such a threat so early on? And the reason is because this alternative thought, or this movement, if you will, is really around the premise that salvation comes from inner knowledge, not through church rituals, not through church rituals. And obviously it was like super inflammatory that it was claimed that the God of the Old Testament was a lower, flawed creator, right? Like that hitting to the core of the Old Testament, which existed far preceding Jesus, right?
Yep.
Like that's.
Can I just say something on that? Not to get us off course,
please.
But I do recall, even as a child, being like, wow, the God in the Old Testament seems really different than Jesus.
100%.
Like he's the one sending plagues. He's the one that feels very vindictive, very like, I'm going to strike you down dead if you don't do this. And
I will smite you.
Yes. Yeah. And I always was confused by that. So in some ways I'm like, I'm not saying I believe it. I just am saying I do recall having that thought that the God of the Old Testament seems so different than Jesus.
Well, okay. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
Like the thing where I feel like people are going to get their boxers in a bunch again is around just claiming it was a lower or a lesser God that created it. I personally don't believe that version of God.
Yeah.
From the Old Testament.
I don't.
Yeah, no. Say it loud and proud.
Yeah, I don't either.
Spirit Outspoken, baby.
And my only other problem too of the earth being created by a lesser God is I feel so connected to nature and such a divine, beautiful presence when I am in nature.
Yes.
I don't know. Like that was one where I'm like, I don't know.
Like,
I'm gonna have to like noodle on this and get more information.
But that's what's really cool is like I'm not all in on this theory of a lower, flawed creator. I also don't personally believe in a fearful, punitive God that would do anything but love and uplift his creation. I just don't personally believe that. Like this is what's really beautiful. Just because we believe in a lot of stuff from these Gnostic gospels and books doesn't mean we have to buy into the whole thing. You know, just here's the thing. We got free will to make our own decisions.
Yeah. And it's unfolding. We can get more information and we can work out our own beliefs in real time.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So as it stands right now, Rach and I, the jury's out on the lesser God. We'll report back. And like believing that there's a divine spark within each person. It's like, this is really interesting too, because there's this whole like perspective that I read recently that, well, a couple things. So like the fact that like we're made of stardust, we're made from what the universe,
super interesting. Share that.
Yeah. So basically this scientist, her dad died, and then she took some of his ashes and looked at it under a microscope, and it literally looked like a star constellation. You could not decipher between what the ashes looked like and literally what the stars are. And it's actually been shown like our makeup is like the exact same elements that exist, that stars are made of, that the planets are made of. We're all made from the same stuff. Right.
Yeah. So I went to this amazing show at the Science Museum in the Omni Theater. And in that, they basically broke down in a really scientific way. I couldn't tell you right now, but look it up if you're very interested, how, in fact, we all carry within us. Literally
like stardust. Yes.
That we carry that within ourselves.
Yes.
Within our body.
Totally.
Yeah.
And like, so physically, right, we literally are the universe. Like, let's just play this out. And spiritually, right, there has been this theory that God put, like, we're all fractals of God. Like, that's what our soul is. And when we pass and our soul goes to be connected to God, we're returning to source. I was like, what do you mean by source? Like the creator? Like, I wasn't totally, and then I like understood more about this theory. So this actually dates to some Gnostic books where they believe that there was a divine spark within each of us, right? Mm-hmm. And like you could relate that to the Holy Spirit. So it was interesting to see like a theory, like a new age theory, which I had just recently stumbled upon, actually kind of highlighted as one of the themes. And again, there was more of an emphasis on spiritual resurrection, not physical. And it's not to say like physical resurrection wasn't applicable. It just wasn't really highlighted in these different books. It was more about like spiritual ascension, spiritual growth. And they really elevated women throughout these, right? Okay, so then 3rd to 4th century CE, the church becomes more institutional and political.
Yeah.
And then this is when Gnostic teachers were like, silence, killed, like really heavy shit. And then writings were like systematically burned.
Hence why they're burying them in fields to protect them.
Yeah. And then in 325 CE, the Council of Nicaea sets the tone for the official Christian doctrine. And this is where unity and control become the priority. So now that we know who Mary was, now that we know the history, it makes so much more sense, like why there was such an official stance. Like, we must control the message.
Yes.
Centralize it so we can just see exactly like what people are consuming and what they're learning.
It makes sense that they would not want this version of Christianity where it's all about inner knowing and going inward. We want you to come to us.
Absolutely.
For your information. And we are the source. And you come to us. You can't do this on your own. We control it. We own it, essentially.
Sin isn't a separation of the divine. It's something you should feel guilty of, fear, because you're going to go to hell unless you atone through payment to the church.
Right.
Think about what polar opposites those messages are.
Yeah.
It became a financial institution, a political institution. Then when those two things come into play, anything alternative to that is a complete threat to money, power, political influence. No wonder. Yeah. No wonder, because some of these things in these books, just pull that string and stuff starts unraveling.
Yeah.
So before I go into some of the gospels that were found in 1945 in Egypt, like why should we look at this stuff?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I did a really interesting deep dive and I found a biblical scholar. His name's Hal Tossig. And I'm just going to give you a rundown of who he is, right? His stats, because I think that's important to legitimize who he is. So he's a retired professor of New Testament and United Methodist pastor. Okay. He's been featured in New York Times, Time Magazine, The Daily Show, National Public Radio, and more. He's published 14 books and he mentors and collaborates with other scholars. It's a nonprofit called Westar Institute. And what Westar does is it gathers together all of these biblical and religious scholars, and they do just what we're doing. They research, they look at things historically, and then they vote. They hold these votes on how everybody thinks, is it true? Is it not? So you could go in on their website and see exactly how everybody's voted when they have these
No way.
deliberations, and then rewrite, summarize all of the information that they found or their final stance on it in a simple, easy to understand way so that us outside of this religious scholarly world can understand and interpret what they're talking about.
That is
it's
so
a really
cool.
So it's WESTA.
So I feel like you and I like vote now.
Yeah. Can you imagine us walking in there? Hello.
It'd be like Legally Blonde.
I know.
Oh my God. But for real, there's so many more people that are way more educated, way more knowledgeable, that are doing exactly what we're doing, right? Really with no agenda. They're not trying to prove something one way or the other. It's truth.
Yes.
And they want to uncover truth.
Yes. And what I loved about his story is he was initially against all of these. He said he should have studied these Gnostic Gospels when he was in seminary, and then again when he went to school to get his PhD, but he never did. And he started doing all this public speaking, and people would frequently come up to him after and ask him, have you read the Gospel of Mary? Have you read any of these? And they've really changed my life. And he said he would kind of pat them on the head and, in his scholarly,
you're so cute,
condescending way, be like, we don't need to look at those. There's really no point. And then he said eventually people started pushing back a little bit. Like, really? Because I found this and this and this so fascinating. And what about this? And he finally kind of reluctant, but was like, okay, I'll read these damn things just because
I want to refute it.
I want to refute it. When these people come up to me after the show, I want to tell them why they shouldn't even bother. And then he read them and he was like, I realized how much they made certain things come alive and how vibrant they were and how moving they were. And he spent the next 20 years diving in and really looking at them. And so then what he went on to do, that he actually gathered together, it was supposed to be 20 scholars, but it ended up being 19. And he had them sit down with all of these different books, and then they had discussions and narrowed it down to a few, and then made it into a book that you can now purchase called the New Testament. And he said that he didn't want these books to just go at the end, almost like an appendix. Yeah. They actually inserted them alongside the current gospel. So if you're at all interested, you can buy the New Testament, and it will have all of them there that they felt were the most important and the most helpful in terms of giving people an accurate portrayal.
And think how much more complete our context and awareness would be with the inclusion of these other
And he
texts.
said it's amazing how often he hears from people that these texts are often more meaningful to them than the books that they had in the Bible. This is a direct quote from him. He said, "It is doctrinal propaganda that has made us think that all the books in the New Testament have the same message." Like if you use any sort of attention when you're reading the Gospels, you will see that they're very different perspectives, and even way down to the way Jesus speaks. Some people have him speaking in parables and metaphors. Another one have him going on for long flowing sentences, paragraphs and pages of all this stuff. And they're very different perspectives. And so he makes the argument, these are different too, but that's okay. They're all a different perspective, much like we were talking about before. And it can give us more color, more clarity, and sometimes a better perspective as a whole of what was really happening during the time of Jesus.
All it takes is to have an open mind.
Yeah.
That's it. Grow and expand your understanding. We will keep saying this until we're blue in the face. We're not exploring this to undermine Jesus.
No. Or even the church.
It's what he's saying. It's just looking and understanding really helps kind of fall in love with the gospel over and over again, right? Because adding more color and more beauty, I don't know, literally obsessed.
Well, I really think that God communicates with people in a way that is effective and meaningful to them.
Yes.
And for me, my experiential moments with God, the times where I feel it in my soul, have been the most impactful. And it seems like a lot of these gospels really hone into that aspect.
Absolutely.
And so what if we've been missing out on this whole other side of Jesus?
Yes. What's ironic is I think that's why we started Spirit Outspoken, was because we wanted more magic in our life, right? And we've had these moments where you can't explain them. There are these synchronicities, really down to miracles.
Yeah.
that we've experienced in different ways. And it was more like trying to open up people to alternative spiritual practices that would lend that experience. But now we've come all the way full circle. And it's really like these mystical teachings from Christ's early days, from these other individuals that were deemed, I don't know, heretics, that connect so deeply with us and what our own personal experience is. Like, I mean, I'll say it, like, I have some type of psychic abilities. That is, as far as the church is concerned, blasphemy, right? Not okay. But I don't believe that. I believe it's like gift and knowing from God. It's gnosis. It's internal knowledge of God. And now I actually have mediums to help me explain it.
Yeah.
That is the coolest thing.
And it's such a fine line, like we've talked about a million times. Like, what's the fine line between medium and psychic and prophet? I mean,
preach.
No, it's intuition. And who is to say what is divine prophecy and what is evil fortune telling? Like,
I know, like, honestly, like having, claircognizant, I feel like what I identify most was just like very clear knowing.
Yeah.
People like the spirit of discernment. It like makes them feel better, right?
Yeah.
It's the same shit, you guys. Like, oh my God.
Marketing. It's all marketing.
It's all
right?
marketing.
Like, yeah.
Okay. So does Hal have anything else to say? Like, I would love to give a little teaser of some of these texts that were found in Egypt.
Go ahead.
Okay. Mary's gospel wasn't even in this, right? We talked like it was found like earlier in a different place, and we're going to get into her gospel, but there's like really cool things that I just want to quickly touch on.
Yeah.
So the first one was the Gospel of Thomas. And this is the whole like premise of the kingdom of God is within you. And these are 114 sayings of Jesus. No miracles, no crucifixion, no resurrection, just teachings.
Oh, I love this.
I know. And like the main idea is that, the kingdom isn't coming later. It's here, it's now, and it's available to you in your own being.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to read a quote from it. The kingdom of God is within you and all around you, not in a mansion in the sky. Split a piece of wood and I am there. Lift the stone and you will find me.
Wow.
I know. And whoever finds the interpretation of these sayings will not taste death. Right? Like, this invites such personal, like, introspection, reflection. And there's no obedience. There's no hierarchy. It's literally like, I am with you always in all ways.
It's an invitation.
It's an invitation. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. So John, the secret teaching of John. This one was like, I don't know. Like maybe acid was available. It was like very out there, but it was basically a revelatory dialogue between the risen Christ, okay, and the Apostle John.
Okay.
And it's sort of like a cosmology, like the cosmos, and explaining the origins of the soul, the origins of evil. It's almost if Genesis and like the stars had a baby. This is sort of like what the secret teaching was. And so basically, like, John was in anguish over Jesus's death, and that he appears to him, not as a man, but as a radiant being. Kind of similar like Mary being like, I don't, who's this guy?
Who is this?
Right?
Yeah.
And like Jesus is revealing himself and he's shifting between old age and young age and kind of like going back and forth.
Ooh,
right? I know.
I love it.
He reassures John by saying, I have come to teach you what is and what was and what will be, so that you may understand the things that are invisible.
Oh, I love this.
And he goes on like this perfect world called like Pleroma, and that there's like the fall of Sophia, like all of this crazy stuff. You got like almost like Greek mythology mixed with Genesis.
Revelation is weird.
No, it's
like that.
Yeah.
Like a weird,
Yes. But basically like it presents Jesus as this like revealer of this sacred secret knowledge. And through this knowledge, it leads your soul back to divine unity.
Love it.
And then the last one I'll hit on is, let's see who we got. Philip.
Oh, Philip.
Oh my God. Philip was like the village gossip with Mary and Jesus. He had all the tea. He's
spilling the tea. Philip.
Yeah. No, it was really cool. So this is also a deeply mystical text. Talks about marriage, sacraments, union, intimate love, often associated with Mary Magdalene. And he's the kind of one that like insinuates like there's some type of relationship. But again, scholars are kind of like, that doesn't have to mean that it's sexual.
Got it.
So he says those who say they will die first and then rise are in error. If they do not receive the resurrection when they live, when they die, they will receive nothing. Right?
Wow.
Oh. And then this is when he mentions that there were 3 who always walked with the Lord: Mary, his mother, his sister. Did Jesus have a sister? No.
Not that I'm aware of.
Well, I don't know. Philip was,
again, T.
His T. And then he was the one that talks about, he kisses Mary on the blank, right? But this is where we see people acknowledging at least a firsthand understanding of Mary's divine role in this like female mysticism, if you will.
Yeah.
So anyway, so talking about embodied spirituality, suggesting that Mary wasn't necessarily a witness, but a partner in Revelation. And that the resurrection wasn't about Jesus's body. It was about our awakening.
Wow.
I know. So like, you can see why the church was like,
yeah, we can't have this.
Burn this shit to the ground. Like, I get it. But also, oh man, it is like fascinating. It's beautiful. It connects deeply.
Yeah.
Right. To explain aspects of faith that we've never really been taught or have been like shown. So you guys, more to come on this topic.
Oh my gosh. I'm just like kind of sitting here trying to wrap my head around it.
Good luck.
Yeah. No, but I love it.
I know.
I
mean, in my head, I don't know. Like, we had to keep filming and going down this road. And it's almost like I felt like I was like, wait, I need like lock myself in a room for 6 months, 6 years.
I feel like decades. I need a solo retreat and just like be in a cabin by myself for
I need 5 an earpiece. Somebody be like, that's wrong. That's actually what it meant. No, zip, go back. But seriously, like we've only just begun.
Yeah. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited, man.
We're going to dig more into Mary specifically, and who knows where this will lead. I mean, maybe we decide to look at each of these in some capacity. I don't know, but we'll figure it out as we go. We're flowing, baby.
We're flowing, baby. We're flowing up the divine feminine vagina.
God, no, please. If there's anywhere I don't want to be, it's
in a divine
feminine vagina.
This reminds me of the vagina monologues. Whenever I hear divine feminine, I think of the vagina monologues. I'm sorry. My brain is fucked up. I'm sorry. Anyway, all right. You want to bring us home?
Yes. So you guys, thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you learned as much as we did, that your eyes and mind have been opened a little bit this week. Stay tuned. And as always, make sure to share this with someone you know. If they are curious and wanting to learn more, maybe they have been away from their Christian faith for a while, and some of that might have to do with whether it's religious propaganda or things that happen to them in the church. Please share this with them.
Yes.
We're hoping to just change people's perceptions a little bit and make Christianity more accessible,
more available, more tangible,
more experiential.
Ooh, we're using our new vocabulary.
Anyway, share it with a friend. Come back next week. We'll have more to share with you. Bye-bye. Bye. Thanks for joining us for today's episode. If you're ready to take your spirituality to the next level, be sure to check out our website, spiritoutspoken.com. There you can download free educational resources, read our latest blog posts, and join the Spirit Outspoken community.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Spirit Outspoken to stay up to date on news, happenings, shenanigans, and all things Spirit Outspoken.